So I'm going to be telling you the story of two very interesting specimens that we have in D'Arcy Thompson's collection. Both of them are penguins, both of them are stuffed penguins. They're not the only penguins that we have in the collection. We have a Gen 2 penguin skeleton, we have some penguin skulls, but these are the only two stuffed penguins that we have. And one is a king penguin and one is an emperor penguin. But each of them has a really interesting story that relates to Dundee's fascinating and long history of exploration, both Arctic and Antarctic. So this is the first penguin. It's the one on the right. And I don't feed it very often, just occasionally it gets hungry, it's sitting in a case all day. This is our emperor penguin, and some of you might have been aware of the media coverage that we got earlier this year when this was returned to our collections. And so it's quite an interesting story of it in recent times. We knew this penguin was part of D'Arcy's original collection because there are two photos from D'Arcy's original museum, which was demolished back in the 1950s, that clearly show the penguin on display then. As I mentioned, the original museum was knocked down in the 50s, along with all the old buildings at the university, and a lot of specimens were sent elsewhere, a lot of things were lost, but we knew that this penguin had survived that destruction because it then reappears briefly as a sort of film star in the 1970s. There was a film made about the university, a promotional film to aid student recruitment. And at one point you see a Freshers' Fair, or whatever the 1970s equivalent of that was, and very briefly the camera sort of pans past the Natural History Society, who have this penguin as their motto. And I took some stills of it, but because it zips past in literally a second, they're all kind of slightly fuzzy. But as it goes past, the one in the middle, you can sort of just about make out that it's wearing a bib around its neck saying Natural History Society. So the students have kind of claimed it as their unofficial mascot. And seemingly it went everywhere with them, including to various drinking establishments. Most notably, the biology students' regular drinking den, which was the old MC Bar, some of you may recall, otherwise known as Mickey Coyle's, which by a staggering coincidence is now the D'Arcy Thompson restaurant. The penguin was known to be propping up the bar there for some years, and this, of course, was not particularly good for its health, and it ended up in this state. Exactly what happened in between, we're not entirely sure, but the penguin then seems to have left the university's ownership altogether and gone into somebody's private possession, and then that person died, and then a local collector did a house clearance and found this penguin among the various other things, and gave it to the Discovery. Now this was before Discovery Point was built, so they had the ship, but there was nowhere to display anything, so they didn't really have much of a use for it. They passed it on to the old Barrack Street Natural History Museum, and it stayed in the basement there for quite a long time. And it was only when the McManus was having its refurbishment and they were doing an audit of all the collections that they had, they came across this in the basement, knew that it wasn't theirs, tried to give it to the Discovery, who didn't seem to want it. And then eventually they thought, oh, it might actually belong to the D'Arcy Thompson collection. And of course I immediately recognised it because I'd seen these photographs. And so we were able to get a taxidermist in to do the conservation. McManus staff very kindly let us use their conservation labs to do that. And then they returned the penguin to us. So he's now looking good as new. And he's gone back on display in the museum. So this will be rearranging our bird display to put him in. He's quite big, unfortunately, so it's taken up quite a lot of space. So that all got quite a lot of media coverage at the time, and it was all very interesting.